Very good evening, dear sisters. It is a deep joy and privilege to reflect together with you on the theme Faith in Action. At this stage in our lives, with the depth of experience we carry, faith is no longer just something we speak about. It is something we live in quiet of our prayer, in our daily choices, in how we accompany one another with compassion and wisdom. Let us journey together as we explore what it means to let our faith remain active, dynamic, and fruitful, especially now when the world and the church need our witness more. Faith in action. As women who have consecrated our lives to God some decades ago, we know what it means to believe, to surrender, to serve. We know what it means to pray in silence when no one is watching, to persist when fruit is not visible, and to love when it cost everything. Today, we don't start from scratch. We begin from a place of lived experience of a faith already tested and refined. And yet the Spirit gently invites us to reflect again. What does it mean to live faith in action today? Now, in this chapter of my life, faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. Faith always begins by listening, not just once, but continually. Think back. Where did my journey of faith start? Perhaps it was in the gentle whisper of God's call during adoration or in a scripture passage that struck me deeply. Are we open to new ways God may be speaking? Through discomfort, change, the need of the world, or even silence? Is there a call to deeper listening? Not to do more, but to be more with Him? Faith that obeys without seeing. Think of Abraham, who obeyed and went, even when he did not know where he was going. We read this in Hebrews 11:8. Faith in action often means stepping forward without clarity, trusting that God goes ahead. We may not be called to physically live like Abraham, but God may ask for other kinds of living old ways of thinking, letting go of disappointments or unmet expectations, embracing, slowing down with grace and trust. Let's take a moment and reflect. Where is God asking me to trust without full understanding? Faith expressed through loving service. In Galatians chapter 5 verse 6, Paul writes, "The only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love." Faith is not a private treasure. It flows outward. For many of us, this love has taken concrete form, caring for the sick, educating the young, feeding the hungry, praying with the broken-hearted. Sharing faith is difficult. It isn't always easy, but it can be one of the most meaningful things a person can do. In moments when people are hurting, scared, or uncertain, sincere faith expressed with love, humility, and compassion can bring real light in dark places. Faith speaks loudest through actions, not just words. Be kind when others are bitter. Offer hope when others despair. Show peace when afraid. Be present with those who suffer. People often remember how you make them feel more than what you said. Be compassionate in difficult times. People may not want to hear answers. They want to hear instead of saying you should believe. Try to tell. Faith has helped me through something similar. Can I pray for you? Meet people where they are. Let faith be an invitation, not an instruction. People often trust your faith more when they know it wasn't easy. Prayer is one of the most powerful and personal ways to share faith. Even if people don't believe, may be comforted by the idea that someone is praying for them. Faith isn't about always having the right words. Sometimes sharing faith is just showing up with love, listening with care, and walking alongside someone in their pain. All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle, says our Father St. Francis of Assisi. Faith is not about being okay, no matter how things turn out. Faith isn't blind, it's brave. Sometimes the bravest action of faith is just waiting, holding on, choosing to trust when things don't make sense. When you feel like giving up, but instead you pray, Jesus, I trust in you. A gentle and encouraging verse from Psalm 34, verse 18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Let me share with you a true incident, something that happened exactly a year and a few months ago. I received a phone call from Kanchan, a friend of mine from Agra. Although I have known her for years, this was the first time she was calling me after a long silence. As I answered her call, all I could hear was her crying, my son, and nothing more. She kept repeating those words between sobs. The phone was disconnected. I became very anxious and tried calling her several times, but she wouldn't pick my calls. I couldn't make out what she was trying to say, but instead, I sensed something terrible has happened to one of her sons. Finally, after a few hours later, her husband Kailash called and shared the heartbreaking news. Vihan, their second son, 9 years old, has lost his eyesight completely because of a wrong medicine given by a doctor for a minor ailment. Kanchan's sorrow was doubled by the fact that she had given him the medicine over 2 months with her own hands. I did my best to console them, assuring them that their son would get back his eyesight. It wasn't easy, but with deep faith, I gave them my word. I will ask my God to give him his sight again. And although I prayed with deep trust in Jesus and Mother Mary, I must admit there were moments of quiet doubt. What if? For days and weeks, Kanchan and Kailash would call me at any time of the day or even midnight, just to hear me say those same words again. I will ask my God to give Vihan his eyesight. Vihan was taken to AIIMS Delhi. Thankfully, they managed to get an appointment quickly. The tests were done, and the doctor said there was very little chance of recovery. The parents were heartbroken, but they still held on to the hope I had given them. Sisters, God answers prayers and miracles happen. Slowly, Vihan regained his eyesight. He has now resumed going to school. Praise be our God. This incident taught me one thing very deeply. Faith is not passive. Faith is not silent. Faith in action. It is standing in the gap when someone else can't stand for themselves. It is a lifelong pilgrimage of trust. It is praying even when your own heart is unsure, but still you pray. And when we act in faith, God acts too. Faith in the dark, trusting in hiddenness. There are seasons of faith where we cannot see the fruit. Jesus himself experienced this in Gethsemane, a moment where he entrusted himself completely into the Father's hands. Dear sisters, perhaps you have journeyed yourself out in ministry and now wonder, was it enough? Did it matter? Yes. Every drop of love shown in faith will bear fruit, even if unseen. As we read in Hebrews chapter 6 verse 10, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people. Sometimes faith in action means continuing even when there is no applause, no recognition, no visible results, just trust. Faith matures with time. In youth, faith often feels bold and full of fire. In maturity, it becomes more like a steady flame, quiet but unshakable. Remember, dear sisters, this phase of your life is not fading but a deepening. A time to become a pillar of peace in community life. A time to savor God's presence in silence and contemplation. A time to walk closely with Christ in his suffering and resurrection. Where am I being called to put my faith in action? Let's ask for the grace to not just believe, but to live our belief in love, in trust and courage. My dear sisters, what is faith? It is a free gift we have all received. Faith is more than just belief. It's a trust. Faith is just stepping out, trusting God. Keep your faith strong. The enemy trembles when you remember who walks with you. God is looking for those with whom he can do the impossible. Faith is louder, not in volume, but in truth. I have been tempted, tested, and tried, but I'm still standing, not by my strength, but by a faith that refuses to bow. Let our faith not be a fragile, but remember the one who holds us, never lets us go. Faith and trust are powerful concepts and understanding, how they relate to both God and people. It is complete trust in God and his promises, even when there is no physical evidence or visible proof. The Bible defines faith in Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This means that faith is the foundation of our hope and the conviction that unseen things like God's presence, his promises, and eternal life are real and trustworthy. Faith is not just believing that God exists, but also trusting his character, relying on his word and obeying him, even when the outcome is uncertain. For example, Noah built the ark by faith, even though he had never seen rain. We read this in Hebrews 11, verse 7. And Moses left Egypt by faith, trusting that God would lead him to something better. Hebrews 11, verse 24 to 27. I am sure you have come across the book, The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence, one of my favorite books. His principal virtue was his faith. This great faith led him to God, elevating him above the world. As a result, he sought happiness in God alone. Faith was his greatest instructor. It was faith that gave him an unspeakable high esteem for Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who resides as King. He was so devoted to Jesus that he passed many hours, day and night, at his feet to render him homage and adoration. Faith gave Brother Lawrence firm hope in God's goodness, confidence in his providence, and the ability to completely abandon himself into God's hands. He never worried about what would become of him. Rather, he threw himself into the arms of the infinite mercy. In essence, faith is a bridge between human uncertainties and divine assurance. We need to cling to God's words. Faith is a flame the devil cannot extinguish. So he tries to suffocate it with fear, doubt, and pride. God desires one thing from us, and that is trust him. Trust in people, it means we rely on people, on their character. However, people are imperfect, and their ability to keep their word or act in a way that our expectations can sometimes falter. This is because people have limitations, emotions, circumstances, and external pressures can influence their decisions. So, trust in people, while important, can be fragile. When someone fails us, it's often because they couldn't meet the expectations we had of them. The pain of being let down by someone can be deep. We can feel betrayed or abandoned. Here I would like to share one most painful experience of mine. My mother, of course now in heaven, became very sick. I called our family doctor who said he will come. His house not far from our house. I waited and waited. Time seems to have stood still while watching Mummy struggling and restless and in need of a doctor's help. The doctor never turned up. We had to call the ambulance and shift her to a hospital. In fact, Mummy had a stroke. I still feel the pain. My trust and faith in that doctor died that day. For months, I was angry with him and found it very difficult to forgive him. But eventually, I did let go. Trusting in God is different. It is rooted in the belief that God is all-knowing, all-loving, and unchanging. His wisdom and actions are believed to be beyond human comprehension, always for the greater good. Faith in God doesn't depend on what we can see or understand immediately. People might struggle with doubt, but the faith often remains rooted in the belief that God's nature is constant and reliable. While humans may let us down, God is believed to remain faithful and unchanging. Trusting in people often involves personal connection. With God, trust can be more about surrendering, recognizing that even when things don't seem to go our way, there is a divine plan at work. It is not merely something we hold in our minds, but something we live out in our daily lives through our actions. True faith shapes who we are, not how we respond to the world around us. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 25, verses 35 to 40, we see that acts of kindness, feeding the hungry, welcoming the stranger, caring for the sick, are seen as acts done unto Christ Himself. This teaches us that faith is demonstrated through love, service, and compassion. Our actions thus become the visible fruit of the faith we carry within. Our purpose is to make people rich in the sight of God. Let us be busy with God's work, console, comfort, help, pray, and listen. Saint James reminds us of this truth in his letter, chapter 2, verse 17. Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. This powerful verse challenges us to reflect on whether our faith is alive and active. True faith transforms us. It moves us beyond words and beliefs into a life of purpose, love, and service. We should be busy doing good works. Sometimes people cheat us, but God knows our hearts. Jesus taught us to give till it pains. Better than prayer and fasting is almsgiving. In whatever way you are blessed, help, give. Jesus had no special day to give. He gave every day, no particular time to do good works. We need to do well in all capacity. Jesus expects us to help to the full. Such type of investment will never go to waste. We need to have a generous heart like Jesus. Such people can say, "We have run the race to the full." Those who have the Spirit, they will never get tired or drained out. Whatever I am doing, it's God's mission, so nothing to worry. How can we live out our faith daily? We live out our faith in both our relationship with God and with others. Our spiritual life needs nourishment just as our bodies do. This nourishment through a consistent and meaningful prayer life. Our main source of energy should be God. We are called to a deep, intimate relationship with Jesus, who has chosen us to belong to Him. Without intimacy with Christ, it is impossible to live a truly committed life. Let me share a personal example that illustrates this point. A close relative of mine got married a few years ago and moved to UK. Due to visa issues, his wife had to remain in India for a while. Though separated by continents, their love for each other could not bear the distance. They went to great length, spending large amounts on paperwork and costly flights just to be together. However, after reuniting in UK, within few months, life became challenging. Both had to work demanding jobs due to the high cost of living. Their schedules rarely aligned. When one was at home, the other was at work. In just few months, both fell into deep stress and depression. They were physically together, but emotionally and relationally drained. Their parents and relatives were deeply tensed and worried too. Eventually, they took a step back, changed to lower paying but more manageable jobs, just to make time for each other. That sacrifice restored peace in their relationship. This makes me ask, what about us, dear sisters? Where is our priority? Do we give quality time to the one to whom we have given our life? We have just one life. Let us pause and reflect. If we are to serve Him effectively in our various fields, we must be filled with His presence. Without that, life becomes stressful, empty, and even dangerous. A consecrated person, having committed her life to God, should spend intimate time with Jesus in prayer by cultivating a heart of deep reverence, trust, and surrender. Prayer is not just a ritual, but a sacred dialogue with the Lord, where one listens and speaks. In those moments, we are invited to sit in the presence of Jesus, laying before Him our joys, struggles, and desires, while allowing His voice to speak directly to our souls. It is not only about asking, but about adoring, being in awe of His presence, and surrendering to His will. In Philippians chapter 3, verse 4 to 9, we read, "Ever since Paul came to know Jesus, he considered everything as rubbish. He gave up everything to belong and cling to Jesus. Once we give everything to gain Jesus, He becomes our greatest possession. Jesus should be the rising sun in our life. There are many saints who were intensely in love with Jesus. Just few examples. Saint Teresa of Avila, her prayer life was marked by profound mystical experiences where she encountered Christ in the silence of her soul, always drawing strength and peace from that encounter. John Vianney had an extraordinary devotion to prayer. It is said that he spent long hours before the Blessed Sacrament, observed in silence adoration. One evening, a young man sat in front of the priest's confessional, amazed by how St. John Vianney prayed. Seeing only a radiant light in the confessional and experiencing the palpable presence of Jesus. This deep prayerfulness exemplifies how we consecrated people should spend intimate time with Jesus, seeking communion with Him beyond words, simply resting in His presence. St. John the Apostle, at the Last Supper, John leaned his head on Jesus' chest, demonstrating a closeness with Jesus. This moment illustrates the type of intimate personal connection that every consecrated soul is called to seek, one of trust, love, and profound union. Spending intimate time with Jesus involves drawing near to Him, allowing ourselves to rest in His love, just as John did, not merely outward actions, but in the depths of his heart. These are but a few examples to show how deep silent prayer is a space where a consecrated person not only converses with God, but allows herself to be transformed by His presence. In this space of intimate connection, one can experience the true essence of consecration, a life devoted entirely to Him. The enemy, like a roaring lion, is always seeking to distract us from God. He rarely attacks with noise and fury. More often, he works in silence. The devil does not come with horns. He comes with distractions. A little delay, a little doubt, a whisper saying, "Did God really say it?" One of his most effective tactics is not to lead us into obvious sin, but to keep us so busy with good things that we slowly neglect the best thing, that is, communion with God in prayer. He whispers, There is too much to do, people to help, tasks to complete, responsibilities to uphold. He fills our minds with endless agendas, worries, and tasks. He convinces us that we are too busy for prayer. And before we realize it, our days are full and our hearts are tired and our prayers become hurried and forgotten. Every trial the devil sends is a chance for us to roar louder than our fear. When devil reminds us of our past, faith reminds us of our future. The enemy aims for our mind because he fears that God can do through our heart. God is looking for those with whom he can do the impossible. Satan attacks us when we are at the lowest. Let me tell you a true story regarding this. There was a young girl, 17 years old, only child of her parents. She was a bright student, very active in the parish, helpful to everyone. In fact, the apple of everyone's eye. One day, she met with an accident and she died. The parents were inconsolable, heartbroken. They asked God, why? Why did you take away our child? The father could not bear his grief. One day told the mother, let us commit suicide, for this pain is too much for us. The mother told the father, see, our daughter was good in every way, and surely she is in heaven, and she will never like to see us in hell if we take away our life and give our souls to the devil. Let us cling to Jesus when trials and difficulties come our way. He is present with us. We are just a prayer away. Remain faithful to him. Run to him. Fight every battle with him. Let us remember, even Jesus withdrew from the crowds of people to spend time in prayer. It is in prayer that our strength is renewed, our mission purified, and our soul is guarded from deception. Let us guard our prayer life like a treasure. It is indeed a treasure, my loving sisters. Let everything we do flow from that sacred place where he speaks, strengthens, and sanctifies. Let me share an experience. A good friend of mine, who is deeply religious, served as a principal of a large college in Goa. She was always busy with numerous responsibilities and activities, leaving her with little personal prayer. Despite her commitment to Christ, she often found herself by stress and anxiety and fear. Even common prayers were something she frequently missed. Whenever I asked her about dedicating time for personal prayer, she would dismiss it by saying that it was very easy for me to preach. It pained me to see someone so devoted to Christ struggle with the very thing that could bring her peace and strength. Although it was not right for me to interfere in another's life, I took a bold step to help her because she was a close friend of mine. I asked her to commit to spending 1 full hour with Jesus daily. To make it more tangible, I gave her a calendar with 30 days on it. I suggested she mark a check next to the day she could joyfully dedicate 60 minutes to personal prayer and a cross for the day she couldn't. Over the course of the month, she often found it very difficult to pray for the full hour. Most days, she could only manage half an hour and sometimes even less. At the end of 30 days, there wasn't a single check in the calendar. However, this experience has had a profound effect on her. While she didn't achieve perfection, it sparked a deep thirst for Jesus and a longing for personal prayer. She began to experience a greater sense of peace and found herself accomplishing more at work within the same level of stress. Recently, I received a message from her thanking me for helping her find meaning in her consecrated life, and how even the sisters in the community and those she works with found a big change in her. With great joy, she sends me a voice message where she sang these lines of a song. I will sing it for you. I have found a friend in Jesus, He's everything to me. He's the fairest of 10,000s to my soul. The lily of the valley, in Him alone I see. All I need to cleanse and make me holy full. Amazing, isn't it, dear sisters? Let us passionately fall in love with Jesus. And I tell you, all will fall in place. To fall in love with Jesus is to be undone by a love that sees your worst and stays. It's letting His presence quiet your storms and His eyes tell you, you are mine. It's not religion, it's relationship. Not rules, but rest in His arms. It's a waking up every day, knowing you're fully known yet completely loved. It's a fire in your soul that no pain, no darkness, no failure can pull out. To fall in love with Jesus is to finally come home. This is what Jesus does when we spend time with Him. All glory to our great God who works through us to help each other grow. I can testify from my own life. When I gave 1 hour to Jesus in personal prayer, He gave me many hours in return. Time spent with Him is never wasted, it is multiplied. In order to have a deep communion with Jesus, we ought to be pure in heart. If we harbor anger and bitterness with anyone, it is difficult to have communion with God. Even indifference to someone is a block to communion with Him. Let us look at the life of Jesus Himself. Despite His demanding ministry and constant crowds, He always made time to be alone with the Father. At times, He spent whole nights in prayer. He was deeply in communion with His Father. When something appeals to us, time loses tracks. If Jesus needed time to communion with His Father, how much more are we in need? Let me tell you, dear sisters, the greatest love story. It took me years of chasing so many things and people to finally realize that the greatest love story I have ever experienced is the one between God and me alone. For to fall in love with God is the greatest romance. To seek Him, the greatest adventure, and to find Him, the greatest human achievement. God sees mess in me and still calls me beloved. When we try to hide parts of us, He whispers, I want all of you. His grace catches us again and again. Let our lives be a love song back to Him. Only when we are truly filled with God can we give ourselves to others through love, kindness, simple acts like helping a neighbor, listening to someone in need, are powerful ways to live out our faith in action. Let us be the hands and feet of Christ in our broken world, sharing love, compassion, kindness in every action we take. In our daily lives as teachers, nurses, doctors, social workers, and caretakers, We are given countless opportunities to serve, to love, and to be Christ to others. Ask each day, how many people benefited because of me? The whole Bible speaks about doing good works. Let us be busy doing good, whatever is in our capacity. Every day is a blank check given to us by God. It is up to us what we do, how much we can fill. In 2 Thessalonians, we read, "Do not grow weary in doing good. Let us give to our God as generously as He has given to us." Jesus was a generous person. He gave everything. Allow me to share a few thoughts on Mother Mary. We all love her, don't we? She was always a busy person, always working for her son. The words, "Hail, full of grace," is an attraction we find in her. A face of anxiety, devotion, and doubt. She asked the angel, "How can this be?" Self-doubt always comes to us too. The angel assures her, "Nothing is impossible to God." Jesus, who has called us, also gives each of us the assurance, "Fear not, I am with you." When we face challenging situations, we have two options: to run away and to fight. We need to fight with faith. We need not give in to fear. Commitment, complete surrender. Let us ask ourselves, how committed am I? Like Mother Mary, am I ready to face whenever anything is asked of me? Mother Mary's Magnificat, "My soul magnifies the Lord. The Almighty has done great things for me." God's assurance. Our life should be a Magnificat. Mary is our mother who watches over us tenderly. It's powerful to think how she symbolizes hope, mercy, and healing for the broken-hearted. Her guidance offers solace, especially when facing challenges like difficult relationships or inner struggle. She is both a refuge and a beacon of light. We come closer to God through her. The idea that we are all part of God, but sometimes lose that connection, bringing pain and fear. It's interesting how Mary's presence can be seen as a constant reminder that nothing is impossible when we place our trust in God. In times of trials, she is there as a guide to help us understand that even our hardships have purpose and are part of a larger plan. Do you often turn to Mary in prayer, especially during difficult moments? Let us ask the Holy Spirit to fill us with His strength and guide us with His wisdom so that we may live out our faith with joy, courage, and mercy. May we continue to walk in faith and serve God's people with love and dedication. Let us return to Mary, the woman of faith par excellence. Her first act of faith was her fiat. "Let it be done according to your word." But her faith didn't stop there. She journeyed, served, pondered, suffered, and ultimately stood beneath the cross, faithful to the end. We as Marians are called to that same faith, a faith that listens, responds, serves, and endures. Dear sisters, your faith has already changed lives, and yet there is more. More love to offer, more hearts to touch, more silent victories to win. Your witness continues, not because of what you are, but because of who you are in Christ. Dear sisters, you are a blessing to the congregations and to the church. Live Jesus. Let me close with a prayer. God, in these uncertain times, help us hold on to hope. Give peace to those who are anxious, strength to those who are tired, and light to those walking through darkness. May your love guide us, and may we be a comfort to others. Thank you for loving me with a love that never changes, or even when I am weak, wandering, or weary. Your faithfulness has carried me through seasons I didn't think I'll survive. When others let go, you held on. When I questioned, you were patient. When I fell, you helped me gently again and again. Your love is not based on who I am, but on who you are, unchanging, unshakable, full of mercy and truth. Amen. A few questions for your reflections. How can I be a witness of joy and hope in a world often marked by fear, despair, and division? What does fruitful mission look like in this stage of my life? Has my prayer become routine, or is it still a living conversation with God? How can I renew it?